Just 3 games left in this historic college football season. Thursday, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is definitely one of the top teams in the nation.
Clash with Penn State. Friday, Ohio State looks to slow down the Horns, with the Buckeyes favored to top Texas.
You know what I see? 2 similar plays. Jackpot, cherry.
I'm nimble for a big man.
Follow along for every play and every bet with in-game live game day on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
He will never repeat this year again as he gets older. It's not happening. That's not the way the world works. In the NFL, when you get older, your numbers dive. That's all there is to it.
Why did you play him for as long as you played him against Dallas if you weren't going to play him this week to break the record? I mean, you left him in that Dallas game forever.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on Sports.
We welcome you to hour number 3, our third and final live right here on this Wednesday morning on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. In this third and final hour, we continue our previews in our big questions to break down the matchups around the NFL postseason. We hit the 3 games in the AFC to start off Super Wild Card Weekend in our second hour here in our third and final. Our big questions for those NFC playoff games, our final 2 in the triple header on Sunday, and Monday Night Football to end out Super Wild Card Weekend between the Rams and the Vikings. We'll also talk a little bit of college basketball on this Wednesday night. All of that, DRS, in this third and final hour.
Yeah, a lot of action-packed stuff. The NFC comes out to play here. Should be some fun times. Also looking at Super Wild Card Weekend. Love to see it. Would anybody like the expansion, Ben, of Super Wild Card Weekend? Throw another team in there, right? Come on now. Expansion is good.
Wow.
Which is why we're going to talk some college football where, look, we got 4 teams left, man. We should have 8 teams left. We should have a couple more weeks of college football to get going here. Expansion is good for playoff games with relevancy, and I love it. And we're going to talk about that more. Let's go.
The college football playoff is going to be incredible as well. It starts tomorrow in the semifinal round.
Can't wait.
Notre Dame and Penn State in Miami in the Orange Bowl on a Thursday. Texas and Ohio State squaring off in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas on a Friday night. In DRS, as we have shared multiple times throughout this show, one of the great things about the postseason about to begin around the NFL is you also get the offseason beginning already for 18 of the 32 NFL teams that did not qualify for the playoffs. Teams already trying to put their plans in place for the future of their franchises. And for 6 right now, trying to fill a head coaching vacancy around the NFL. Again, those 6 head coaching vacancies that we have. 3 made the move in the regular season. The Jets, Bears, and Saints. 3 have made the move since the conclusion of their regular season. The Patriots on Sunday, the Jags on Monday, and the Raiders firing Antonio Pierce yesterday afternoon. So of those 6 vacancies at this moment, which is the most desirable? It's a question we had to ask you and Fade the Public. again, with all the changes to X and Twitter and the algorithm and this and that, maybe we can get a couple of more options in a polling question that you can ask so we don't have to dwindle 6 down to 4 and really only 3, because the 3 that we listed, DRS, perhaps the most intriguing, but if you thought it wasn't one of these 3 and was the remaining 3, we asked for a reply as well. Which open NFL head coaching job is the most appealing at SportsGrid on Twitter? Bears, Jets, Patriots, other in a reply. Most of the public, DRS, still deciding between Chicago, nearly 48%, and then 41% on the Pats. Not a lot of love for the Jets. That would check out. And we did get a reply from Goodfellas Laugh, as you well know him, that said others and Jacksonville. Which way did Donnie Right Side vote in the Fade the Public poll?
Yeah. Let's understand this. I did not vote for the Jets, and I'm glad to see the Jets at 5.2% right now through a couple hundred votes, because who wants a 17-year-old Brick Johnson coming into your office saying, just cooked up a nasty Madden play, I want to see this as the first play of the game, and leaves like, you know what? I got to put Brick Johnson's play actually in here. That absolutely should be 5.2% because you're not getting any help from the ownership. Now, let's move on to the 2 teams here that are vying for that potential. 47.5% for the Bears, 41% for the Patriots. For me, I went with the Patriots, but I do want to start with the Bears. One thing you have to understand, ownership in New England, I guess you can say, is very good because of the success over the past 25 to 30 years. Robert Kraft has owned that team, but a lot of that success goes to Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, who are neither there. And you see when they're both out the door, what type of turmoil you can possibly get. Now, that can be rectified because why? They have a quarterback they believe is their franchise guy. They have the number 1 overall pick, which they could trade and get a plethora of picks and a lot of money to spend in free agency. This could be a quick turnaround. Where really, who are you vying with right now? The Buffalo Bills. The Jets are a mess. The Miami Dolphins look like they're about to turn into a mess. That's why I went with the Patriots. But for the Bears' perspective, they have horrendous ownership. I mean, imagine this. A Chicago Bears team in a football-laden city with so much tradition, and every single year they come up short. And it's one of the largest markets in the country that only has 1 professional football team they have to themselves. They should be printing money. They messed up their first round on the stadium. They went from Soldier Field to the new Soldier Field, built a tiny stadium, which is ridiculously looking, and now they're trying to build another stadium. But outside of that, the Bears do have a pretty good optics on the field. Hey, I think I have my franchise quarterback. I have a lot of money to spend, but on the downside is you're going up against the Vikings, the Packers, and the Detroit Lions, where you're like every single year now for at least the next 5 to 6 years, this is going to be so tough just to escape my division itself. I understand why people voted for the Bears for those same things on the field, but off the field, outside of what they're doing in the other buildings in that division, I can't give the Bears the lead there. It's the Patriots for me in this vote.
Yeah, DRS, again, we have talked about this. Every head coaching position, every head coach job in the National Football League, because there are only 32 at the most elite level of the sport, is in theory desirable. You're going to get paid millions of dollars, and even if you stink, you'll get fired and still be owed what your contract is worth. There is no doubt about it. Of the 6 that we are debating between, not all that many seem all that appealing at this moment. For what Donnie just laid out beautifully, from the football logistics, I would select the Chicago Bears. I actually think Caleb Williams looked pretty good this year in a disastrous season in the Windy City. This was a Bears team that was wildly disappointing, mind you, but did have a win total of 8.5 entering the year because of a talented roster outside of the rookie quarterback and the number 1 overall pick, is in a big market and should be a desirable landing spot. But the Bears turn good things bad. It is what happens with bad ownership, which is also one of the reasons I don't think the Raiders is a great landing spot. The Saints have had success. I don't think New Orleans is all that bad, but it really should be the New England Patriots. It's not the New York Jets in my estimation, and I have great questions about the Jacksonville Jaguars because of the retention of Trent Baalke, and I'm not exactly sure Jacksonville is all that desirable of a market right now with Sean Khan as the owner. To me, it is New England. They obviously know success. Robert Kraft seems to be a decent owner for the most part. Gerard Mayo was a scapegoat. I don't think he got a fair shake in New England. But now in terms of the opening and beyond, I do think it is a desirable landing spot. More than likely for Mike Vrabel, by the way, also a former Super Bowl winning Patriots linebacker and defensive assistant because you have more than $130 million of cap space. The ownership group is not all that bad. And you have Drake May as your quarterback that, of course, showed a lot of hope and promise throughout this season. So like you, DRS, I voted for the Patriots. I think New England is the right side. Everything in me wants to say Chicago, but until the McCaskies are not the McCaskies, I don't really think Chicago is the best landing spot of all the 6 openings.
No, it's certainly not. And you go back to New England, like you have an owner that will put up with a lot. Bill Belichick, one of the cheatingest dudes you're ever going to find in NFL history. And you know what used to happen there? Hey, by the way, the fines are coming down. Organization will fine $5 million. Bill Belichick fined $1 million himself. And Robert Kraft would readjust that contract immediately to pay fine for Bill Belichick. So he'll put up with the shenanigans. He'll bend some of the rules in order for you to be good at your job. And also, you're not following in the coattails here of an absolute dominant icon in the sport, which was Bill Belichick. You had the buffer of Gerard Mayo. You're on your way up. So now you can convince that organization, if I'm coming in, and if it is Mike Vrabel, hey, I want a lot of say in this front office. I want to be able to do this and that because it didn't work out. And you know Robert Kraft at his age is like, you know what? Let me get one last run in me at this point. We'll put the financial resources behind everything you need. And also, once again, you already have your quarterback and you have the number 1 pick. That's not supposed to happen. That's a gold mine up there right now in New England.
Just to confirm, the Patriots have the 4th overall pick. They squandered that opportunity for the 1st overall pick, but still, you are correct. A valuable draft position to better the overall roster. That NFC playoff preview and the big question up next.
Jimmy Butler wants to leave because Jimmy Butler knows that Riles isn't going to pay him and he wants to get paid. Simply put, if they would have given Jimmy Butler this contract extension in the summer when he asked, this wouldn't be happening. But Riles did it, and Riles wanted him to play. So now he's disgruntled because he wants out.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text, put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, hey, I never got the text. And
oh, like, no.
Oh, yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. If he texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Statement from Giants president John Mara. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll will continue in their respective roles with the organization. As disappointing as the results of the season have been, Steve Tisch and I remain confident in the process that Joe and Brian have implemented.
The Giants, an absolute train wreck, and I love it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Just 3 games left in this historic college football season. Thursday, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is definitely one of the top teams in the nation.
Clash with Penn State. Friday, Ohio State looks to slow down the Horns, with the Buckeyes favored to top Texas.
You know what I see? 2 similar plays? Jackpot. Cherry. Come on, go for a big man.
Follow along for every play and every bet with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
A triple header of NFC playoff action here in this 3rd and final hour of a Wednesday on the Early Line on SportsGrid. When you have a full week to break down only 6 games during Super Wildcard Weekend, you find different angles of attack. Yesterday, the numbers break down a look at the early lines. on the early line for the opening round of the NFL postseason. As we did in the second hour today around our 3 games in the AFC, a big question or two for each and every matchup. Now here in this third and final hour, DRS, it is a big question for all of the 3 matchups we have in the NFC. Our final 2 games of a triple header on Sunday, Monday Night Football in Los Angeles between the Rams and the Vikings to end out the weekend. The first game on Sunday in the NFC is midway through the afternoon. It is the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles at the Link in Philly. 4.5-point spread in favor of the Eagles, which actually, although it's only 4.5, is the largest number of any of our 3 games in the NFC during Super Wild Card weekend. Let's start with the quarterbacks. We know that Jordan Love is good to go, obviously exited the regular season finale against Chicago with a right elbow injury. Jalen Hurts, however, who got injured in Week 16, way back in the third to last game of the regular season, exiting the game in the opening half with a concussion, as of last check, remains in the concussion protocol. Today is a big day because it officially opens up the full practice week as they get ready for a Sunday contest. So the first big question, DRS, for the Birds and the Pack, what is the concern level for Jalen Hurts' concussion?
0, when you understand how the concussion protocol actually works. And the final stage to get cleared, Ben, which means it's just for you to practice. We weren't going to practice last week for Jalen Hurts at all because he was never going to play in that game. So then you see the weekend comes out and the Monday and the head coach Nick Sirianni saying, I can't update, he's still in concussion protocol. The final hurdle before you're able to talk to the quarterback and admit it is once he practices, which is going to take place today. Also, if you do read the tea leaves, as coaches in the NFL, boy, they love to give other teams something to think about, because if one thing happens, they asked Kellen Moore yesterday, also the offensive coordinator, how do you feel about preparing 3 quarterbacks? Yeah, it's fine. No big deal. Not one there. And then end the story at that point. And then Ian Book gets released later in the day, who was the Eagles' 4th quarterback, which on game day, Ben, you have 3 active quarterbacks with one that's going to be the emergency. If Book is gone, do the math. Jalen Hurts is going to be available for Sunday afternoon's game for the Philadelphia Eagles, which last week I got a little bit nervous until I understood what was actually taking place. Is you can't clear concussion protocol if you don't practice. The Eagles weren't going to let him practice last week, and no practices yet this week, so therefore he hasn't cleared it despite being in the building and getting his work done and being in meetings and all that good stuff at this point. So me worrying about Jalen Hurts playing this weekend, it's at a 0.
You say 0. I would say about a 5% for me. Could they have cleared him and just not had him practice last week? Potentially, just physically keep him out of practice. But I do understand what you are saying.
You have to practice. You can't clear him
without. Could you not be limited or a DNP with something else, or no?
No, you have to be on the practice. I think they were playing it mostly a little bit coy, which is funny, which gets the fans upset. But reading the bottom line is the protocol says you must practice in order to be cleared. He hasn't practiced yet. He will practice today. Then he will be technically cleared once he steps foot on the practice field. It's just semantics we're playing at this point, which shouldn't be this way, but it gives people a lot of panic and pause. Yeah.
But that's why we go to Dr. Donnie. That's why we love that information. And, Donnie, I think it is very useful because I think the natural question would be, all right, well, he got injured in Week 16 and still hasn't cleared concussion protocol. What would change in the next 48 hours that would allow him to practice when we got the latest update on Monday that he remained in the protocol? Now we know if he is out there on the practice field today, of course, he will be good to go for Sunday.
Yes.
I guess it's a semi-question for the big picture question. Let's say Jalen Hurts is on the practice field, DRS, as you expect on this Wednesday afternoon for the Birds. Does the line move at all in favor of Philadelphia, or do you think the 4.5-point spread takes? Yeah, go ahead.
It shouldn't, and this is where sometimes it gets me angry, which I missed out. The look-ahead line before these games were played this weekend was the Eagles -3. I'm like, I'm going to take it. Just didn't get around. It disappears when the games start, and then it reappears at 4.5 in the 5.5 ranges. But I always laugh, because we're telling you right now, Jalen Hurts is going to be cleared. So if you are betting the Eagles and haven't bet them yet, you should be betting them right now, because Jalen Hurts getting cleared, Ben, does not mean it goes back to 3.5. You know what I mean? It's more likely to go to 5.5 than go back to 3.5. So you are getting the number where it's supposed to be today, but also the people out there that are waiting around like, I'm not going to bet until I hear he's cleared. You're doing it wrong. Like, a lot of it is optimism, but also doing your own research to beat those lines. So if you go, I'm waiting to see Jalen Hurts get cleared when you know he's going to be cleared, and then when he gets cleared, cleared the line. Let's just say it goes to 5. That would be pretty funny, then betting the 5. He's going to be cleared. Now, the question is, though, right, Ben, how effective is he going to be without missing all of that time in practice? That's something you can dig into. But the health of Jalen Hurts, I don't think we're going to have to worry about that on Sunday.
I bet it when the line opened up right away on Sunday afternoon after the Packers lost in Lambeau to the Chicago Bears to make this that 2-7 matchup, and the Commanders, of course, came back to beat the Dallas Cowboys. It was 3.5, now 4.5. I almost kind of forgot that Jalen Hurts was still in concussion protocol. So like you, DRS, I'm not overly concerned that he is going to miss Sunday based on where these numbers stand right now. Donnie, I think there was a thought throughout most of this year. The Lions, the number 1 seed, the favorites to win the NFC, the Eagles, that second best price. Would it be the Vikings or the Packers as that outside tier of 2 contender? So second big picture question for this matchup. Now, seeing the Pack as a 4.5-point dog and frankly not playing their best football entering the start of this postseason, can the Packers win the Super Bowl?
Yes, these are good football teams. And understand this, and Ben and I talk about this a lot. It's a one-game tournament. You either play good football or you don't, and you're going home. Oh, man. You know what? They got us. They gave us a wrinkle we never saw before, but we got 6 games to get right and win this 7-game set. It's one game. Injuries are going to happen. Concussions will happen. Hamstrings are going to happen. Bad turnovers are going to happen. Terrible penalties are going to happen. Yes, you'd be a fool to not say the Packers can't win the world championship. They're that good of an organization with that talented players with a great head coach. When they put it all together, yes, they can make a run.
Yeah, I'm not so sure anymore, DRS. I don't really think there's a ton of value with the Packers or even the Vikings entering Super Wild Card Weekend. The teams that are hosting during the opening round, maybe being able to make some noise in the divisional round, now that could be a different story. So we'll talk Sunday night in Tampa with the Bucs and the Commanders next.
Jimmy Butler wants to leave because Jimmy Butler knows that Riles isn't going to pay him, and he wants to get paid. Simply put, if they would have given Jimmy Butler this contract extension in the summer when he asked, this wouldn't be happening. But Riles did it, and Riles wanted him to play. So now he's disgruntled because he wants out.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, hey, I never got the text. And I'm like,
no.
Oh, yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Statement from Giants president John Mara. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll will continue in their respective roles with the organization. As disappointing as the results of the season have been, Steve Tisch and I remain confident in the process that Joe and Brian have implemented.
The Giants, an absolute train wreck, and I love it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Just 3 games left in this historic college football season. Thursday, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is definitely one of the top teams in the nation.
Clash with Penn State. Friday, Ohio State looks to slow down the Horns, with the Buckeyes favored to top Texas.
You know what I see? 2 similar plays. Jackpot, cherry. Come on, nimble for a big man.
Follow along for every play and every bet with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
One big question, or perhaps 2, for each and every matchup during Super Wild Card Weekend to kick off the NFL postseason. We have done all 3 games in the AFC, our first in the NFC, the second of 3 on Sunday, technically, the Eagles and the Packers. Now it's time for Sunday Night Football in Tampa between the Buccaneers and the Commanders. Again, Washington, a full field goal favorite at home, Tampa, a full field goal favorite at home against Washington with the highest total of the weekend at 50 and a hook. The one big question we have for the Commanders and the Buccaneers is either team, Donnie, a threat to actually go on and win the NFC Championship?
No, I don't think so. And if you're saying who has the better chance to make a run and just get hot, it's probably Baker Mayfield slinging it all over the place. But 2 talented teams nonetheless, but I don't view them on that upper shelf like we're going to go on a run and win 3 straight games to get to the Super Bowl. I don't think either one of these teams can do that, Ben. No.
Yeah, I don't really either, Donnie. I do think the Buccaneers in their divisional round matchup, because the winner of this game, right, will head to Philadelphia more than likely if it does go as chalk, and the Eagles take on, Eagles beat the Packers. I think that's a tough matchup for the Bucs against Philly, and I do believe the Commanders would be in for a rude awakening because they beat Philly in Week 16, and the Eagles would have some revenge on their mind. Was that game in Philly or in Landover? Now that I'm thinking about Week 16.
The last one was in Washington. The previous one on the Thursday, it was in Philadelphia. So, yeah, it was just in Washington.
So regardless, still that Week 16 matchup, the Commanders winning outright. Donnie, I really do believe around the NFC, it is a tier of 2. That ultimately, when all is said and done, despite maybe finding some value into the divisional round and maybe some close games throughout, we are going to see the Lions and the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. So to the question, is either team a threat to win the NFC? I would say no. I do believe the Buccaneers, though, are ripe for a pretty stout victory on Sunday night. Now, the Commanders have been a wild success story this year. Rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels going to run away, of course, with Offensive Rookie of the Year with first-year head coach Dan Quinn, looking like they have turned this Washington franchise, much maligned as of late, around in only a 1-season sample size. But when you start to look at the wins for the Commanders this year that have led them to 11, it is not exactly a murderer's row. Now, in college football, we debate strength of schedule. In the NFL, not as much. It's much more equal around the league and through each conference. I do believe the Buccaneers, DRS, win, and I think that flat field goal number is going to be critical, but I think Tampa wins outright on Sunday to advance more than likely to Philadelphia to take on the Birds in that divisional round.
Yes, and I'm confident that Baker Mayfield's going to have a good game as well. Multiple touchdown passes. It's just what they do. They didn't perform all that well last week, but won when it mattered. Washington on the road in a game that looked like they wanted to win, putting their quarterback on the bench after he got sacked 4 times in that game, and is quite sore coming in. But I put out a tweet yesterday about sometimes it's who you play and when you play them, Ben, right? The last 6 quarterbacks that have basically started, or let's just say played the majority of the football game against Washington, Trey Lance, Michael Penix, Kenny Pickett, Hayner Rattler in that same game with the Saints, and then Will Levis and Cooper Rush. You are now going to get a bona fide Pro Bowl quarterback trying to dissect that defense, which is something that hasn't happened in basically a month and a half against Washington. I think all signs point this weekend to the Commanders getting beat by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for me.
The only 2 wins for Washington this year out of their 11 against a team above 500. The Eagles back in Week 16, where, as Donnie alluded to, Kenny Pickett played the entirety of the game after Jalen Hurts exited early in the opening quarter, and Philly was in command of that football game, and Cincinnati way back in week number 3. Again, I'm not trying to bemoan the Commanders. They have had an incredibly successful season, and the building blocks are more than in place for the future. I don't think Tampa wins by 14 like we have seen in the college football playoff. I just think the Bucs are the right side. And when you talk about this game, Donnie, Washington, 3rd best passing defense statistically in the NFL. You mentioned some of the quarterbacks they have faced to kind of juice those numbers. Not great defending the run, and that is what the Buccaneers are doing so much better this year than in any of the previous 3 they have won the NFC South. My one bet I have already made in this game, Bucky Irving over 87.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think Washington's defense is vulnerable. There's no doubt about it. And also, good weather conditions down in Tampa, nice and warm at that point, not really expecting any rain in the forecast and or high winds. So we should get a pretty clean game. I'm expecting some points in this game, which means you're right. Bucky might be able to get off. Look, 30, 40, 50-yard run. He's done it.
Yeah. The Bucks do right now have tied for the fourth best conference championship price at plus 950. More on the early line next.
Need help with your NFL picks? Get NFL insider knowledge from Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chow, with Sick Picks at Sports Injury Central. We reveal hidden injury advantages the sports books miss. Our doctors provide insights, and our algorithm tells you who to bet on. Spreads, player props, totals, in-game bets, Sick Picks covers it all. Get a free week now with promo code SportsGrid at SickScore.com.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
No advantage is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like...
One big question for each of our 6 matchups during Super Wild Card Weekend to kick off the NFL postseason. Live right here on this Wednesday on the Early Line on SportsGrid. DRS, we hit the first 3 in the AFC in hour 2. We've hit 2 already in the NFC here in this third and final hour. Now time for our 6th and final of the weekend, the third and final in the NFC, and our final one of all of Super Wild Card Weekend on a Monday night in L.A. It's the Rams and the Vikings. Minnesota opened as a 2.5-point favorite. That number just 1.5 points, and that difference in the money line shrinking as well. Live on the FanDuel Sportsbook currently, the Vikings minus 118 as your ever so slight money line favorite. Even money price plus 100 on the Rams at home. So let's start with either the money line or the point spread for that big question for our Monday night finale to Super Wild Card Weekend. Question number 1, DRS, is the right team favored?
The right team is favored based upon the season they've had if they just met in equal circumstances, right? But they're not meeting on equal circumstances. You saw last week a game, and we weren't questioning who was going to come out of that game victorious, the Vikings or the Detroit Lions, of how that would impact their playoff run. Bye week, champions of the NFC, don't lose a game. You're at home in your own dome, and away you go into it. But we were questioning what was going to happen to the loser, where you're going at the last game of the football season on a Sunday night, which felt like the Super Bowl. and the Minnesota Vikings lost that football game. So now what do the Vikings have to do? Fly back home out of Detroit, get home to Minnesota, game plan for the Rams. While the Rams all last week weren't game planning for their Week 18 opponent, they were game planning to see who they're going to get out of the Vikings and or Rams because they would fall into, let's just say, that 5th seed. Having said that, the Rams last week didn't really play any starters in that game. So Matthew Stafford, an aging veteran quarterback, got the rest up. Puka Nacua has had, nicks, bumps, and bruises all the way through this year. He's healthy now. Cooper Kupp looked like he might have been a shell of his former self over the final couple weeks. He really loved to get that week off. And you're thousands of miles away from home at this point. And I'm not saying it's a letdown situation in the playoffs. What I'm saying is you're behind the 8 ball where the Rams are rested, waiting, and at home. I agree with that line. We're not talking about 3, 4s, or 5s as a favorite towards the Vikings, which let's just say different circumstances from last week. And this game was played in Minnesota. I wouldn't even have a question. Yeah, Minnesota's going to win this easy. So for me, I think the line is right at just around a pick 'em. But boy, oh boy, the Vikings coming in certainly behind the 8 ball compared what the Rams are rested and ready for.
So, DRS, I would completely agree with everything you just said right there in terms of your reasoning. I do believe the right side is favored, and I understand why Minnesota enters this game, albeit on the road in L.A. against the rested Rams, Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay as the favorite as well. With all of that being said, however, I've already bet the Rams at a plus 2.5 price that I made back on Monday. I think L.A. wins this football game outright. I'll take 2.5 points, though, for a game that I do believe will be tightly contested. When you talk playoff pedigree, Kevin O'Connell, who used to work under Sean McVay, doesn't really have it, right? 2022, they win 13 games. They get to the postseason. They host a game against Daniel Jones and the Giants when everybody thought the Vikings were perhaps a little bit fraudulent, and New York wins that game outright. Sean McVay does have it. He has coached in 2 Super Bowls. He has won a Lombardi trophy. And, of course, the Rams were a playoff team even a year ago. So in terms of that head coaching matchup, DRS, to end out Super Wildcard Weekend on Monday night, it is our second big question. How valuable is Sean McVay?
Sean McVay is extremely valuable because you're right. You take the pedigree here. Been there, done that before. Won a Super Bowl. Understanding I have a veteran quarterback that has been very good throughout his career. And he's also won a Super Bowl with me. But also, you're looking at the opposite side. Because McVay, to me, obviously is going to get the nod over Kevin O'Connell. One of those up-and-comers. Looks like he's going to be a great coach. But coming off of maybe your worst performance of the season on offense, where typically you just dial up whatever you want and guys are wide open because of your play calls, that was shut down last week. That's something to keep an eye on. And also talking about from a confidence level, you can't have your confidence shaken more than what we're getting out of Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold did have a low spot during midway through the season. Great to start, a little bit slow, really ramped it up and was great towards the end until we just saw him in that Detroit game. And this wasn't at just like, okay, the defense is locking you down. Multiple times, guys running wide open. He just wasn't making the simple throw. So now you're expecting him to lick his wounds, as we say, and get out there on the West Coast and play a dominant football game, which he has the ability to do. And yes, the Rams aren't as good as the Detroit Lions. They probably won't put as much pressure on you as the Lions did the week before. But from a coaching matchup here, Sean McVay's been through it all. Now let's see what Kevin O'Connell has once you're stepping up into the limelight after a bad performance. How do you get that offense cranking in gear again is something to watch out for.
Yeah, no doubt about it, right? The Rams are rested, which has been a big component of this season for LA after the 1-4 start. For LA then to win 9 of its next 11 to secure the divisional crown before we even got to the final week of the regular season. What a turnaround it was once again for this Rams team, who started last year 3-6 and then rallied to earn that playoff spot in the NFC. You would expect Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and the entirety of the offensive line rearing and ready to go against what has been for most of this year a very solid defense coordinated by Brian Flores in Minnesota. Donnie, I think there will be some overreactions. There really hasn't been in terms of the spread by any means. And as we look at those stats on FanDuel, the public is still, it's not overwhelmingly like we have seen in Buffalo or, for instance, in the Cotton Bowl on Ohio State. But we have seen more of the bets on Minnesota as the slight road favorite in LA than on the Rams. I think the overreaction is going to be Sam Darnold. The idea of Cinderella, turning back into a pumpkin after his worst performance of his only season in the Twin Cities. 18 of 41 against the Lions, a $166, both his season low in terms of passing yards and completion percentage. Did not throw a touchdown, didn't throw a pick, but was pressured all night. He was sacked only twice. He has been sacked 48 times this year. In 14 of 17 games, he has been sacked multiple times. But it's not just about the sacks, as we saw. It was the pressure that made Sam Darnold, who fair or unfair is often infamous for uttering the words, "Man, I'm seeing ghosts out there," look like he was starting to speed up and not process very well against that Detroit defense on Sunday night. And I think Detroit has a better defense, and they certainly were healthier last week than they had been. But it was not like the Lions were world beaters all year long on the defensive side of the football. And the Rams certainly have not been that either. The Rams are allowing more than 22 points per game defensively this year, and they have had games giving up their fair share. But in the last three at full strength, throwing out the regular season finale with the reserves, playing against Seattle, Donnie, they gave up a total of 24 points in those final three games against the Niners, against the Cardinals, and against a team that I am blanking on right now that I will find, against the New York Jets as well. This young Rams defense that all you could hope for under Chris Shula was to improve week over week, and in the most significant of spots this season has done exactly that.
Yeah, where did you see last week the issues came from Minnesota? Detroit was bringing a lot of heat with a good pass rush. You got a pretty good pass rush, a lot of young talent on the Rams. But for my money in this game, if we are looking at that offense for the Vikings, it's pretty clear 2 weeks ago. Aaron Jones getting that quad banged up. He was not 100% last week, and he was invisible in the red zone when maybe you could have used an extra run or two there. I see his yardage prop at 59.5 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. He better eclipse that. Your best friend on the road in a playoff game, give me those easy runs, keep me ahead of the sticks. Aaron Jones might be my key to victory this weekend if the Vikings win it.
And listen, we all saw Sunday night. The entirety of the country did. It was one of the highest watched games of this NFL regular season. Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings understand they are going to face a lot of pressure this week. The Rams understand that getting pressure on Sam Darnold, he is not at his best. If they know that, they'll make the adjustments. Who does it best to win this football game? Again, it's basically a pick'em. Wonder what the number looks like when we speak again about this game on Monday night. More around the NBA next.
Jimmy Butler wants to leave because Jimmy Butler knows that Riles isn't going to pay him, and he wants to get paid. Simply put, if they would have given Jimmy Butler this contract extension in the summer when he asked, this wouldn't be happening. But Riles did it, and Riles wanted him to play. So now he's disgruntled because he wants out.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text, put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
Oh, yeah. Remember that,
I
Kenny?
would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Statement from Giants president John Mara. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll will continue in their respective roles with the organization. As disappointing as the results of the season have been, Steve Tisch and I remain confident in the process that Joe and Brian have implemented.
The Giants, an absolute train wreck, and I love it.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid. Just 3 games left in this historic college football season. Thursday, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is definitely one of the top teams in the nation.
Clash with Penn State. Friday, Ohio State looks to slow down the Horns, with the Buckeyes favored to top Texas.
You know what I see? Two similar plays. Jackpot, cherry. Come on, nimble for a big man move.
Follow along for every play and every bet with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
A big Wednesday night around the association in the NBA. Now, we have been using the term finals preview a little bit fast and loose, if you ask me. But for this one, I do believe that it is, in fact, warranted. Tonight in Cleveland, it's the NBA's two best teams. The Cavaliers at home as a 2.5-point favorite. The Cavs, the best record in the association, 31-4. Oklahoma City on the other side, the best record in the Western Conference, the only other team to reach the 30-win benchmark this year. The Thunder are 30-5. Even more history, DRS, for this matchup in the land. Now, OKC did lose the NBA Cup to the Milwaukee Bucks, but in terms of regular season games that have been counted toward their regular season record, the Thunder have won 15 straight. The Cavs on yet another lengthy winning streak. They have won 10 in a row. This is the first matchup in NBA history between a team on a 15-game regular season win streak, that being the Thunder, and a team on a 10-game regular season win streak, that being the Cavaliers. So yes, finals preview is certainly justified. Total 230 at a hook. DRS, how do you approach this marquee matchup in Cleveland?
What a perfect time to put it on, right? We're talking so much about Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, marquee matchups in college football and the NFL. That's where the eyeballs go. But we don't have that tonight. But we do have a marquee matchup in the NBA. And how about this, Ben? Isn't it refreshing? Look at the anticipated starting lineups. SGA, Wallace, Dort, Williams, Hartenstein, Garland, Mitchell, Wade, Mobley, Allen. I don't see anybody load management tonight in this monster game. And also, we're not burying this game at 9 o'clock at night. It's a 7 o'clock start where everybody can enjoy it. But having said that, the 227s here in New Jersey opening up. Now we're seeing even higher than that graphic at 230.5 as a live line. But on the FanDuel Sportsbook here, we're getting about 50-50, levels of betting just ticket-wise on either team. That is a lot of respect for OKC. Said Donnie, they're one of the best teams in the NBA. No, they're on the road and catching, let's just say, 2.5 points when Cleveland has been so hot. And at home here, it's almost a toss-up. That almost leads me to want to take OKC right off the top, just looking at that line. But finally, superstars are playing. Big game matchup. The NBA feels like, to me, Ben, it's finally arrived. Let's get after it. I'll take OKC in this game. I'm going to read that line and take the 2.5 points.
And DRS, I would agree with you as well, how great it is to see the superstars in this matchup facing off, and kudos on the NBA for flexing this game into prime time in a national television window as well for what really is an NBA Finals preview. Now, OKC has only been an underdog one other time this year. It was in game number 1 of this season on the road in Denver. OKC is a 2-point dog, won outright 102-87. The Cavaliers, a favorite, 32 times in 35 games so far. And against the spread, as a favorite, the Cavs have not only been winning a ton of games, but also covering numbers frequently, 22-10 ATS. It should not be a surprise, Donnie, with the only two teams in the NBA that have won more than 27 games, both at the 30-win threshold already this year. And we are approaching the opening half of this season kind of being in the books, that we have the two best cover teams in the NBA as well. Cleveland, 25-10 ATS. That is the best. OKC, 23-11-2 against the number. There is the tail of the tape. We showed you the NBA championship odds earlier in the show. OKC is the best team in the Western Conference, the short favorite to win the Western Conference crown. Cleveland has the best record out east, and yet Boston remains the favorite, and the Celtics the shortest price to not only win the Eastern Conference crown, but also the NBA championship. How do you compare these two teams, where we stand right now in the early portion of January?
It's crazy because you just saw that graphic up there, and what did it tell you? The NBA regular season means nothing. The Cavaliers are 31-4. I think the Celtics have 10 losses. The Cavaliers are 10-1 to win the NBA championship when they might get the number 1 overall seed. But as we know, superstars rise to the occasion, 7-game series when you get to the playoffs, things get drawn out, the cream rises to the top. And I don't even disagree that the Cavaliers should be a little bit lower of a rung than, let's just say, the Boston Celtics because of their pedigree for winning a world championship. And if they're healthy, certainly they can go toe-to-toe with anybody. But it's just funny to see the discrepancy where you are in one of the biggest games in the NBA season, in one conference, plus 135 there for the Thunder, and the other conference, plus 470 for the Cavs, plus 280 to win a championship for the West for the Thunder, and a 10-1 price, as I just stated, for the Cavaliers. It's just odd to see that. But the NBA, more than any other league, is like, if you're healthy and you're in the postseason, it doesn't matter if you're a 12 seed or the 1 seed, the pricing is going to be a little bit wonky because of what the anticipation is once we get to the playoffs, how you should proceed with that.
Again, 82-game NBA season. Teams have played 35, 36, 37 games. We are nearing that midway point. So mark it right now. We knew the Celtics entering the year were a very short favorite to win the Eastern Conference. Once again, they're already into minus money at minus 110, and that happened a few weeks ago. OKC is plus 135 to win the West. Second best price is the Nuggets at a 7-1 number. We have shared Boston 2-1 to win the NBA championship. OKC just 80 cents behind at plus 280. Then that big drop off, more than $7 to the Cavs team you see on your screen at 10-1. Those clear lines of delineation. Elsewhere around the NBA on this Wednesday night, DRS, some other marquee matchups, 8 games in total. The Bucks and the Spurs. Can the Nuggets bounce back from a loss last night at home without Nikola Jokic? The Knicks lost as a 12-point favorite without Karl Anthony Towns earlier this week against the Orlando Magic as well. Of the other games, DRS, what catches the attention?
Yeah, little Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid going to sit out another basketball game. Boy, if you are a season ticket holder for the 76ers, you got sold a bill of goods to start this season as Paul George and Maxey and Embiid are going to be out. They're never out there at this point, and yet they're still an 11-point favorite, which shows you how hilariously bad the Washington Wizards are. But that Spurs-Bucks game ought to be interesting later. 5.5-point spread, the 5-point spread for the Milwaukee Bucks right now, total of 225. So some really good games to watch tonight in the NBA, which, again, is headlined by OKC and Cleveland.
And to your point, DRS, the Wiz catching double digits is not a rarity by any means. Washington is the worst team in the NBA, a 6-28 record, an underdog in all 34 games, 12-20-2 against the spread. A couple of good matchups on that board as well. You see the Pacers and the Bulls, 2 teams playing good basketball as of right now. The Pistons are 500. DRS, enjoy the money line or the early line next.
Just 3 games left in this historic college football season. Thursday, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is definitely one of the top teams in the nation.
Clash with Penn State. Friday, Ohio State looks to slow down the Horns, with the Buckeyes favored to top Texas.
You know what I see? 2 similar plays? Jackpot, cherry. Come on, nimble for a big man. Ooh.
Follow along for every play and every bet with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
He will never repeat this year again as he gets older. It's not happening. That's not the way the world works. In the NFL, when you get older, your numbers dive. That's all there is to it.
Why did you play him for as long as you played him against Dallas if you weren't going to play him this week to break the record? I mean, you left him in that Dallas game forever.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
It is that time of year in college basketball. Conference slates picking up all around the country, as evident this week in men's college hoops. Last night, a huge Tuesday, as we have broken down for you. The top 10 tilt in Gainesville, the number one team in all the land. Tennessee suffering its first defeat of this year against the Gators and losing by 30 points. But plenty other big games last night, including our other top 25 tilt between two ranked teams out in Westwood at Pauley Pavilion, UCLA and Michigan. The Bruins were on the rise in the AP poll a week ago, up 7 spots. Then went to Nebraska on Saturday. Difficult place to play inside Pinnacle Bank Arena. Lost that game. Expected to respond at home last night as a slight 2.5-point favorite. But enter Dusty May and the Wolverines. First year for Dusty in Ann Arbor. It has been immediate success right away. Michigan wins and wins big, 94-75. The guy flexing on your screen from FAU, that's Vlad Golden, scored a career-best 36 last night to pace the Maize and Blue in Westwood. Huge victory for Michigan, who is one of 2 undefeated teams in the Big Ten, alongside who? Well. If it ain't the Michigan State Spartans, that should be a fun rivalry. But the Wolverines now in a great position to really contend for the Big Ten regular season crown, because Michigan is not just perfect in first place in the standings at 4-0. 3 of those 4 wins on the road already in Big Ten play, which is often a very difficult task throughout a conference slate in a high major conference in college basketball. Again, what a win for Dusty May and the Wolverines, who now have 3 ranked wins this year. That's tied for tops in the Big Ten alongside Illinois. Georgia beats Kentucky. As the line kind of predicted, Kentucky closed as an ever so slight favorite, but that number was closer to 3.5 earlier in the day. Big win for Mike White and the Bulldogs. Again, shows you the strength all throughout all 16 teams within the SEC and, of course, at home. UGA knocks off Kentucky 82-69. Auburn tested in Austin, but the Tigers do win 87-82. They were a 10.5-point favorite. I'm sure you've seen it by now. Cooper Flagg absolutely dunking all over Pitt last night. Big win for Duke at home, covering easily, winning by nearly 30 as a 14.5-point favorite. Georgetown lost at Marquette in Milwaukee, but did have the lead at the end of the opening half. The Hoyas already this year with as many wins in Big East play, too, than they had a season ago. Ed Cooley's Hoyas playing much better basketball. Georgetown covers as a 12.5-point dog. Arizona goes on the road to Morgantown and pulls off the upset from a ranking perspective, but the Wildcats were a 3.5-point favorite against the Mountaineers. And it does not stop there. We go to the Wednesday night slate in college basketball. Again, each and every night in the SEC is going to be dotted with marquee matchups. How about a top 20 tilt in Norman? Oklahoma losing over the weekend, suffering its first defeat. A slight favorite at home against top 10 A&M. Wade Taylor, Buzz Williams, and the Aggies. Texas A&M playing some great basketball. Total in that game, 147.5, has me intrigued to maybe look at the over. Alabama, double-digit favorite on the road in Columbia against South Carolina. Alabama has some really quality wins this year, still a top 5 team in the country. But I think the line that stands out most to me in our marquee matchups around the country tonight, Big East battle, Villanova and UConn. A lot was made of Nova's struggles early this year, and rightfully so, in year number 2 under Kyle Neptune. But the Wildcats already 3 Big East wins, and they are a slight favorite tonight at home against Connecticut. Again, the Huskies struggled out in Maui, 0-3 and winless, but in the mainland, in the continental United States, perfect, 12-0. And yet the Cats are a slight favorite against the Huskies. Something to pay attention to. Kansas in the fog, 13.5-point favorite against ASU. Not a great start to Big 12 action for KU, who had 8 conference losses, the most since the late 80s a year ago. Illinois, again, the top-ranked net team in the Big 10, number 7 in the country. Double-digit favorite against Mike Rhodes' Penn State Nittany Lions. Penn State, weirdly, has won 4 in a row against Illinois, but did lose at the Palestra on Sunday afternoon against Indiana. Home floor advantage in the SEC. It's why John Calipari's Hogs, a favorite tonight at home, laying 3.5 against top 25 and ranked Ole Miss. What a night in college basketball. What a Wednesday on the show. Let's do it again tomorrow, shall we? A Thursday starting at 8 a.m. Eastern on the Early Line.